Welcome to InnovativePhysiqueDevelopment.com. My name is Robert Malik, ISSA Elite Trainer with 18 certifications from Science of Sport. Today's episode is about going to failure and the training log. So what I'd like to address here first is going to failure. And I know that us bodybuilders have heard that so many times regarding going to failure and go to failure and everyone's going to failure. Whatever. No big deal. So why am I talking about it? I'm talking about it because the fact is most of us are really not going to failure. If you take a look at the training video of Mike Menser going to failure, it looks a lot different from what the bodybuilders are doing in the gym. He was really going to failure. Many of us guys are not going to failure, okay? So, before I discuss how to go to failure, I want to bring up the psychology of failure, okay? First, you have to fail in order to succeed. If you don't fail, you're not even trying. It is an integral part of success in achieving something, also failing, until you do achieve what you wish to achieve. So many of us are trained, geared as we grow up to not fail. And as a baby that tries to get up and walk, a baby will fall down, a toddler will fall down again and again and again. You just get up and try and walk again. No problem. But as we come up in life, as we grow, there's so much of this negativity of not failing that we don't want to fail where other people see us fail. When was the last time you saw someone trying to lift something or do something at the gym and fail? Almost all the time you see people all around you, quote unquote, achieving what they wanted to achieve. I'm not seeing failure all around me. I'm seeing success all around me. And if I'm seeing success all around me, there's something that's not quite right about that. How come more of us are not attempting something that we thought we maybe couldn't do, but trying to? Or when we're at the gym, are we doing what we know we can do and then calling that going to failure? So you see, I tried to go to failure, but I achieved it and I didn't fail. And how often does that happen? And then are you actually going to failure? Are you daring to fail to achieve something great if you're always achieving what you set out to do? How much did you challenge yourself or push yourself if you always achieved what you set out to do and never failed? And then you say, well, of course I sometimes fail, but when did that last happen? Okay, so we're so trained that failure is down here and bad, that we don't dare to fail to achieve something great. Okay, so this is what I wanted to really touch upon to begin with, because without the psychology of first accepting that failure and learning, accepting, believing, learning that failure is part of success, then we won't start going to failure, okay? Now, something else that's integral with this whole failure thing and negative psychology is possibly getting injured, right? So when we're growing up, our parents are constantly telling us, don't get hurt, like don't run or don't get hurt. So we have this somehow ingrained in ourselves of not just not failing at something. God forbid you fail in school, you failed, can't fail, can't strike out at the plate, right? Can't get an interception or a fumble, you just can't fuck up, right? But also you can't get hurt. Don't get hurt, don't fail. Listen, negativity, all right? Don't get hurt. You know, it's funny, when you go to play baseball, no one's saying don't get hurt. Just play ball, right? And if you get hurt, it's like, big deal. And isn't the same thing with football and a variety of sports? It's like getting hurt is secondary. Just do your sport. But then there's always the part about don't get hurt, don't get hurt. And the funny thing is, when we're growing up, is that when it comes to sports and organized sports, for some reason our parents never care about us getting hurt. Now, I have to say, fortunately, my dad cared about whether or not I hurt my elbow in reference to throwing a curveball, I shouldn't throw a curveball, or I shouldn't pitch more times a week than what I was supposed to, so my dad was concerned about that. But growing up, the way most of us are raised is not to get hurt. But then in sports, that's forgotten about. And everything is just focused on the sport and some of the craziness that goes on with sports and training. So we have two interesting things going on of dysfunction. We have organized sports where no one seems to care about if you get hurt. And the coaches are training the players to a level that has caused deaths and injury and overtraining. And then we have this whole other side of when we're growing up of don't get hurt, don't get hurt. So the don't get hurt side falls by the way of when you're not involved in organized sport. And then when you're into an organized sport, for some reason, that just goes out the window and all people care about is what? Now, the other negative side of this, what happens there? What happens there is winning and not losing. So what I was getting to before, where this kind of dovetails around, is don't fail because you have to succeed, okay? And then also this whole component of not getting hurt. So it all kind of comes together where there's this negativity that's swirling around in our heads when we're at the gym of A, not failing, but also B, okay, A is the not failing part, and then B is the not getting hurt part, all right? So here's the point here. You need to try and challenge yourself. And in any sport, there is some risk of injury. Problem with the organized sports is once people get into the whole can't fail, have to win side, then the whole injury thing goes out the window. Failing is part of success. Okay, and this issue with the organized sports of you can't fail and focusing on winning is what can cause the undue injuries, all right? So when it comes to bodybuilding, accept the failure part is part of success. Don't be overly obsessed that you cannot fail in order to achieve. And if you don't have the obsession of achieving only, you'll actually achieve more. And then, in reference to getting hurt, in any sport, or when you're playing, there are injuries, okay? So what you don't want to do is you don't want to be so obsessed with the winning side that you put yourself at risk on a constant basis or overly risk. But you do want to accept that with sport there is risk of injury and challenge yourself and dare to fail, okay? So when you challenge yourself to the next level, you'll be surprised quite often as to what you can do. If you don't try and dare to fail, you won't know. And for myself recently, I bumped up my plumbing pipes that I hike with to 35 pounds from 25 pounds. Now usually you only bump it up 5 pounds. I didn't have any 5-pound gradation to bring it up to. If I wanted to go up in 5 pounds, then I may have increased the pipe diameter. That could have bumped it up 10 pounds and not 5 pounds. If you go from 1.5 inches to 2 on the plumbing pipes, there's a big difference on that. So anyway, just quickly, instead of getting different size pipes, I threw my 10-pound ankle weights onto the pipes. I was amazed that I was able to still hike with 35-pound pipes and how well I did so. And at one point, one of the weights came off, and I raised that 25-pound pipe as if it was nothing. Talk about post-activation potentiation. And the science of that is where you are lifting a heavier weight and then you drop it to a lighter weight, and suddenly the lighter weight feels as if it's like nothing, lighter than ever before, lighter than it should feel. And that's because all of a sudden you went from a greater weight to a lighter weight. This effect can be a delayed effect, whereas this can last even for hours. But the sooner that you make that change over, the more of an effect. And in this case, it was like a matter of seconds. So all of a sudden, wham, right up in the air. And it just goes to show that what I thought before was heavy in these 25-pound pipes was now suddenly like nothing. And I was hiking with 35-pounders. Recently, I was doing side pulls, and I didn't have 10-pound barbell plates to increase from 130 to 140. So I was like, okay, great. I have 155, I'll pull 155. That's what all my plates come out to at this time. I just ordered about 40 more pounds of plates, but at this time I had 155, so I went from 130 right to 155. I really should only go up 10 pounds at a time, but I didn't have that, so jumped it up 25 pounds. And I pulled it, right, made it happen. So, you know, there's other part to this too of don't let the weight psych you out, all right, stay positive. So you'll be amazed as far as what you can do if you remain positive, challenge yourself, be willing to fail, and even accepting some risk of injury that takes place in any sport. That said, the odds of you getting hurt are low, but still, to challenge yourself is really necessary to go up to additional levels and to make progress at I'd say, not just an improved rate, but sometimes if you don't challenge yourself, you'll stay at the same weight or same task like forever. You know, 25-pound pipes to hike with that'll always feel heavy for the rest of your life. So unless you push yourself to increase that weight, you'll just be like, oh God, yeah, these are heavy. I mean, it's never gonna, you're not gonna do 1,000 reps of 25 where it's ever gonna feel light. It's always gonna feel heavy, so you gotta challenge yourself. And this is part of that whole thing with the failure. And I think the real risk of injury is where you're so geared towards only achieving something that you can never fail at something. So you push yourself to a level, and this is what happens in sports, where you push to a level that you should not push to, all right? So yes, you get injured in sport, and I think that as bodybuilding being a sport, you should accept that. If you cannot accept failure, and you must achieve everything that you set out to do, well then you are setting yourself up for a greater risk. I mean, what if you absolutely could not do a certain lift, or could not do a certain feat of endurance? How far are you going to push yourself before you accept that tomorrow's another day? All right, now, let me just give you an example. You have the great David Goggins, who was absolutely one of the greatest, if not the greatest endurance athlete that's ever lived. I mean, this guy would push himself to the point where he broke bones in his feet. He's pissing blood. I mean, look, you have to YouTube and Google David Goggins and learn about his history as being a Navy SEAL and a Ranger, and all of it, 200-mile races, and my God, whatever, this man's done amazing things. But he would push himself to a level that I would not, and I probably wouldn't either. All right, and this is where, well, he got injured, and somehow he just heals and still comes back from some of these injuries. Really amazing how far he pushed himself. But I'm not saying that you should necessarily push yourself to that level where you can absolutely never fail. And as an ex-military man, he would push himself to levels in competition whereas if he was actually in combat, like he was willing to die and bleed. It is unreal. So I'm not saying to go to that level, but that's a level that you can take, not accepting failure, okay? So failure can be your friend to achieve, and failure can be your protection mechanism. Now, one of the things about failure that I'm seeing in the gym is guys, let's say you finish off a set, you say you went to failure. Well, if you went to failure, right, and let's say you're doing a set of 12, how come no one's trying to push above that where you can't even get out a complete rep? What about partials? Where, okay, I went to failure, I couldn't get out a complete rep, so now I'm doing a partial, okay? I'm not seeing in the gyms actual failure. I'm seeing people who are in the gym saying, okay, yeah, that was my last rep, I went to failure. That's not going to failure. Okay, you didn't absolutely give it your best to the point where you failed. You got out the rep, so how did you fail? So what I'm bringing up is starting to implement partials, whereas if you can't get out a complete rep, get out a partial, okay? Actually take something to failure where you actually had muscular failure, right? Now, the next thing I want to bring up is a positive mindset, and this is a really interesting concept, that you can be ambitious and have positive thoughts and goals. You can be driven, so you can think that you're a positive person because you do positive things. and you are ambitious, so you're positive. And one thing that I've learned, which is very interesting, is that you can have positive thoughts, you can be ambitious, but yet you can be negative upon yourself and negative upon others, and have a negative mindset, which actually is not healthy and is not most beneficial for your success. What's most beneficial for your success is having a positive thoughts and positive outlook upon yourself and others, and then also having ambitious thoughts and thoughts to be driven towards the goal that you wish to achieve, but not to also do this where you're negative and critical, unnecessarily critical and negative upon yourself and or others. So that's something I just like to bring up, keeping the positive, good energy among yourself and other people as you try and be successful, rather than achieving this in a negative manner. Okay, where you're putting yourself down, you're putting others down in different ways, thinking about things on a negative side rather than positive. The glass is half empty rather than half full. You know, you want to be a positive beacon of light for other people around you in your life as well as yourself, and this will help to make your goals more achievable, and you'll achieve more this way and be happier. All right, so I want to bring that up as far as being positive and achieving, and when you do fail, to not be negative on yourself and negative on others, and understand that failure is an integral part of daring to achieve something that you have not yet achieved. Okay, and we're all trying to look good in the gym, and you know, guys want to look good for girls, and girls want to look good for guys, and no one really wants to fail at something, and especially if you're someone like myself and you're doing a big lift and people are looking, you know, it's like you don't want to fail because you know you don't want to look stupid, but you know, this has got to stop. You know, everyone has to understand, stop even for myself, everyone has to understand that failure is part of success, daring to achieve something that you have not achieved before. And if you're going for a big lift, and even if everyone is watching and you didn't make it, doesn't mean that you're not going to make it tomorrow. As a matter of fact, if you were the one that dared to fail and put your muscles through that you almost made it, guess what? One day you will, but because someone else never tried, you'll never get to that point. Okay? So you are actually in the process of getting there. It's a process. All right? Now, the next thing I want to bring up with this whole thing is the training log, and the reason why this kind of morphs right into the training log is because notice what I said about daring to fail and attempting something, and eventually you'll get there. All right. Usually, with a training log, you have, okay, I'm doing 10 sets of whatever, say 10 sets of 10, 10 sets of 40, or whatever that may be, and okay, you have your successes down, okay. Most of the time, when you have a training log, the goal is to complete what you set out to achieve and to have your successes, not necessarily have where you failed and you didn't complete your intended goal for the day with 10 sets and 10 reps, and okay. So in your training log, you failed to achieve what you set out to achieve. But you were a winner in that you tried. Okay? And that's what I don't like about a training log is you could look like a total failure if you didn't achieve anything in your training log. And meanwhile, you're out there daring to fail, and maybe failed every time. But in that failure, you were given everything you had, your muscles, everything you had. And there was a lot of muscular and physical stimulation to do that. A lot of benefit. And you were a winner, and you tried. And maybe you were successful on one of these sets, and not on the others you couldn't finish it because you tried something new. You know, what I don't like about the log is you may not want to dare to achieve something that otherwise you never even tried. But yet in the logbook, it seems like everything is fine because you know, here you go, 5 sets, 10 reps, you did them all, very good. Right? But that's not necessarily the way this works. Do I have a training log as far as doing that? No, but I have something similar. If I'm doing 10 sets of 50 on a machine, if I do there's a specific endurance workout that I do for my back, then yes, then I'll mark them down. When I'm at the beach, if I'm doing 10 sets of 40 on my side laterals with the barbell plates, I have that as a specific set exercise that I do, and I'll mark off in the beach lines in the sand. I'll go to the sand, with 1, 2, and 10 lines. All right. I do have my training logs in my own way regarding this, but that's the exception rather than the rule for me. And what I'd like you to be careful of is to understand this, that bodybuilding is not so much an activity as what it is an art. Okay? It's like you don't say, I completed 3 paintings today, right? It's how good the painting was finally. It's not how many paintings you painted, it's how good the painting is, right? It's not like, oh, I delivered the package. When you're doing a set, there are variables here in shocking the muscles, doing different things. Whereas if you're always doing the same thing, then you stagnate your gains. All right. Now, one thing I've spoken about in the outdoor training is the need to make something real and reality. Okay. And in reality, in world history and evolution, bodybuilding is very new. So if you're out there in the woods doing whatever, no 2 resistances are the same. All right, you're picking up this branch or moving this log, or everything is a little bit different. And this is the whole shocking thing, shock your muscles. What is the name about shocking your muscles? Because in evolution, we wouldn't have the same weight, the same speed, the same routine every single time. No, you pick up this, you move that, you move this, whatever. Everything wasn't the same in the evolution. Think about animals or fish. Well, are they doing everything the same? It's like, no, everything that they do in their day is a little bit different. So having that variety is good for your gains. And let's say if you're doing a set, maybe I'll go to let's say side dumbbell raises on a machine. Okay, so maybe you're doing a set, and at the end you do like some pulsing. All right, or maybe you'll do instead of 2 arms at the same time, some alternations with some isometric holds in there. You'll hit one for speed, hit one for where you're going slow, time under tension. It's all different shock methods. There's stripping sets and pyramiding. There's also something that I call, which you may want to do with a training partner. It's my own invention, catching a fish. Where someone's going, let's say, slow on a pole like this, and you have a rope on the other side, and all of a sudden, like it's tug of war, like a fish got it, And if you're on the other side of this, you know, your central nervous system has got to respond, and you fight, you know, and it's like a war all of a sudden, and you're fighting it. There's that type of technique. There's also, I call jerking the weight, or jerking the poundage on someone, where they're doing a certain resistance, and you're pulsing the weight, where you're stimulating the central nervous system and activating the type 2B fiber, where it's not always so just smooth, but it's also all of a sudden it's a little more, a little bit less on the weight, and it changes in where your muscles all of a sudden react. Not overly, all of a sudden you know, slam someone, but where you pulse, you pulse the weight. So that happens to be also something that I came up with it, but then I read somewhere else that someone else has also come up with that one, but you rarely read about it. There's also something called isometronics from Charles Poliquin, where when you do an isometric that you're trying to drive through, if you're doing, let's say, a bicep curl, and well, how many people know about a Smith machine with the bar going across? All right, I'll explain this a little differently. So if you're doing an isometric, you know about the isometric, like where you're just holding it. So let's say if you're doing chest fly, instead of just holding it, we're trying to drive through. Okay. Well, let's say your training partner puts a weight in between, and you got to hold that weight. You're trying to drive through on the isometric. This is highly effective. This is more effective than a regular isometric where you're just holding, but rather trying to drive it, you know, drive through. Now let's say if you're doing abdominal crunches, okay, you may want to focus it on the muscle. You come down and you have a good contraction, maybe a little better stretch, okay, a loaded stretch. We stretch on the resistance, so you may want to hold that stretch on the resistance. Okay, there's overloaded eccentrics here. There's just so much. There's so much that you can do and be creative in a set. I mean, there's also where, let's say, doing side raise or doing a rep, and you stop at different points. I mean, there's so much that you can do to stimulate your muscles that it's a shame to take away from, may I say, playing, having a good time, making it exciting. You know, have fun. This is also an art, even rather than a science in a sense. Like I was saying before, it's like a painting. It's not just getting from point A to point B. I did X number of reps, that number. It's the quality of these reps. Your mind-muscle connection. What was the speed? What was the tempo? What was your tempo? Time in between each rep. What was the speed of each rep? You know, 5 reps at 5 seconds is not 5 reps at 30 seconds. All right. You have a type 2B fiber that peaks in its strength within a second or two. You have a type 2A that peaks in its strength in about 10 seconds. You have a type 2A1 that comes in and now is becoming stronger than the type 2A. The 2A1, this is approximately at the 30-second mark, where it starts to shift into 2A1. And then at 90 seconds, it shifts now into the type 1 fiber. That's working at its strongest potential. All right? So all these things come into play, whereas a training log is, okay, ba-bum, ba-bum, I did it, da-da-da. All right? Because you may not be able to do it if you started to do these other training methods. You know, what about some forced reps at the end, where you wait at the end of your set and then pause for 10 seconds, hit another rep, pause for 10 seconds, hit another, pause for 10 seconds, hit another rep. Mike Mentzer training principle there, an accumulation of volume. All right? So there's so many things that you can do and change up. Like, I'll do flies, and I'll come here, I'll come from the bottom, right? And so instead of just the regular up here, and I'll come down like this and here, you know, and I'm holding like this, and, you know, and stretch, and we stretch. And, you know, there's so much. What I'm saying is, I don't want to see like, okay, shit, I can't do all that because then I won't get to my 10 reps out of my 10 sets. So I better not do that because that's too hard. So I'll just do my 10, and of course I'm not gonna actually go to failure, right? I say that in a funny way, you know, it's sarcastic. So, you know, okay, so I'm not really going to failure because, you know, if I really went to failure, then I may not be able to complete my 10 reps or my 10 sets because that's too hard. I'm not going to throw in any special shock methods because that'll also screw up that 10 reps and 10 sets routine. So yeah, my book looks wonderful, but I didn't shock my muscles. I didn't produce a variety. I wasn't going real. I wasn't making my training real and pursuing reality. And I bring it up all the time. Real is better than simulated, okay? The best workouts that I've ever had, bar none, was when I would pull my weights in the desert lands of California and Nevada. Absolutely the best. And I would take my weights off, not on a trail, right out into the desert lands. And I'm pulling my weights over rocks, shrubs, through shrubs, up and down gullies, up hills, down, everything. Every resistance you can imagine. Caught up on rocks, right? And you're pulling up the rock, and now I got a negative as it's pulling down the rock. And then all of a sudden it slips, and wham, I get to pull that one really fast. You know, it's just, I never knew from one rep to another. I'd have to get into certain balance positions. All right, if I'm pulling, let's say, if I'm pulling one arm at a time, right, from this way. Or I'm pulling this, or I'm pulling this way, and I have to get in different. Okay, on this particular terrain, and you know, so there's balance involved, and now I'm caught up on this, you know, on this rock or shrub or in this sand, you know, or gully, right? And I got to pull it out of that, and suddenly my resistance goes like 50% higher, and then it slips out of it, it's 50% lower, and it was never ever the same. Unbelievable. Unbelievable how good that training was, and how good that felt in my body. All right? Real. Nothing was ever the same. Okay? Evolution is not the same. It's not the way it worked. And that's why, guess what? That's why the whole thing comes about with shock methods and stagnation. You gotta have what is the basis of that? Why is that so? That if you don't change it up, you don't have gains because it's not real. That's not the way evolution was. Bodybuilding's only been around for how long? So here we are in the gym doing something that we've never done before, thinking it's going to work, and it's not working. You change it up. You make it real. You have resistance with bands. You have resistance with weights. You have resistance, hopefully even in water if you have that, water resistance. You have resistance in the sand. I train on the sand. Okay? And then if you get really lucky, you get to train into desert lands and into, you know, mountain areas and all that beautiful stuff. All right? So changing up your routine and making it more real is what's going to give you the best gains. And sometimes the logbook is not your best friend. It's not the way to go. Sometimes it is if you have a particular workout where it fits, and I have it for that, that's fine. But working out is like an art. You know, it's a science, but it's also an art. And it's about having a good time as well, and playing almost. And this is going to give you some of the best gains. So, if I want to add something, I'll add on another piece to this. I'm going to go, matter of fact, I'm going to go out this morning and do some polls, and If I want to add a little bit to it, I'll do so. But that's pretty much about it for now. I hope that I covered everything. And I'll be coming back with another video after this. And I'm going to be addressing how to make exercise form work for you. And I hope you enjoyed this, and there will be more to come. So let's go get it today and give it everything you got and dare to fail. Achieve something great. All right. Okay, so, matter of fact, I knew I wanted to say something, I forgot. I was 40 minutes into that. I don't have any notes or anything like that. I just speak right off the top of my head. So I knew there was something, I couldn't remember what it was. So, all right, I didn't even go out and pull yet. It was like a minute later now. I'm like, okay, it just came to me, so I want to share it. All right, so another thing that you can do with the training log, which I really recommend this, is that not only is the training log something that you can use for some specific workouts where you're doing, okay, like I had said, I do 10 sets of 50, 10 sets of 50 pulls on some various machines. That's a specific workout that I do that on. Okay, fine, no shock methods. I know that, just that, that's the intent, that's it. And when you have to mark off those 10 for that, yeah, it's a good idea to have a book that you could, okay, or even a piece of paper, all right? Along the lines of being creative in your workouts is not necessarily to have, let's say, a log book, but to have something to refer to. Okay, I went to the gym today. I was planning on focusing on mechanical tension on my muscles or accumulation of volume. And all right, did you do A, B, C, and D as far as shock methods for that or techniques for that? All right. Did I do isometronics today? Check. All right. So you don't forget. Did I do pyramiding up and down? Did I do my one rep, wait 10 seconds? Did I do alternations rather than two arms at the same time for alternations of more mechanical tension? Then metabolic burn and accumulation of volume. Okay, so did I do my alternations? Did I do my one rep, wait 10 seconds, one rep, wait 10 seconds? Okay, check, yeah, I did that. Check, yeah, I did my alternations. Did I do my isometronics? Yeah, I did that. All right, so, you know, it's another video episode for me to recommend various shock methods for mechanical tension versus accumulation of volume and how to address different muscle fibers. But the best type of, let's say, log you could have for these type of situations is, okay, I know that today I want to go in and I want to address my strength, I want to address my speed strength and my endurance. What are some methods that I know I need to work on to make that happen today? And then have a piece of paper, logbook, whatever that you want to call it, say, yeah, okay, I did that. And whether you want to check it off or just look at it as a reminder, oh yeah, I forgot that, okay? Because if you don't have that, and I know even for myself, I've come out of the gym and like, yeah, I forgot that. You know, I forgot that shock method, or I forgot that shock technique. Jeez. You know, I didn't do that. You know, I didn't remember, I don't know, I was working out, I was really into it, and I just didn't think of, right? And then you missed it. You didn't do that shock method. So, or variation, whatever you want to call it. So I recommend that, yes, sometimes the logbook is a good idea, sometimes it's not, but where it's not, and where you're going more on the creative side, it's really good to have some type of notebook as a checklist to be like, okay, did I take care of all this? And even if, let's say, you say, well, Rob, what if I'm going out to the desert lands like you were talking about? Well, you know, what there? I got it all set up there. Well, look, in that situation, in that situation, it doesn't hurt to, let's say, okay, fine. I have my notes as far as, did I take my creatine? Did I take my beta-alanine? Did I have enough salt, enough potassium? Do I have my water with me? Do I have any small snacks with me to keep my carbohydrates cool? Do I have any pre-digested protein with me? Do I have a sweater with me in case it gets cold out there? Whatever. I mean, you know, having a checklist is also a good thing, and will help to make sure that you do everything that you can do, and can even keep you safe if you're going out into the mountains, that you have all the things you should have, let's say, in case it gets cold. So those are the variations of a logbook. Whereas, yeah, if you're doing all sorts of different stuff, what are you going to keep? You're going to write down, you know, notes. I mean, it's going to go on forever as far as how you handle this setting in comparison to that one. You're going to be writing all the time, right? So maybe it doesn't work for that. But what can work for that is, like I was saying, once again, have some notes with you regarding, okay, if I have an idea I'm doing this today, or maybe when you get into the gym, you feel like, all right, my muscles feel like doing that. So you have a little book with you, like, okay, if I want to go down that path, remember to do this for accumulation of volume, all right? Like drop setting, for instance, or the rest pause at the end, where end of a certain number of reps, where you wait 10 seconds, hit again, wait 10 seconds, hit again. These are accumulation of volume techniques rather than mechanical tension techniques. If you're supersetting, what is that? Is that the mechanical tension, or that's accumulation of volume? No, that's accumulation of volume. So if you're going down the accumulation of volume direction, then you can break out your book, like, yeah, okay. And look at it for just like 5 seconds, like, all right, you know, as a reminder, okay? Mechanical tension, as a reminder, what type of techniques do I want to do for that? Make sure I get that done. Okay, and what techniques apply to both? So I got it right here. So having those notes and being able to just check, like, if you so want to choose to check it, right? You just look at it, yeah, I did that shock technique, or I did that method, like, okay. So it doesn't always have to be rep, set, that whole deal. So that's a variation. And there you go. So, all right, on that note, this has been almost about an hour, and time for me to stop my workout. All right, everyone, do yours, I'm doing mine.